Welcome to the Business Performance Podcast, where we feature expert thought leaders and cover their best strategies, stories, and advice that you can use to successfully mature your own business performance. Now, here is your host, business coach, Henry Schneider. Hello, everyone. This is Henry Schneider of the Business Performance Podcast, and today it's my pleasure to speak with Scott Carley, who is the Change Energizer here in Austin, Texas. He's a keynote and retreat speaker, and also involved as the president of the National Speakers Association. So, Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you, Henry. It's great to be here. You have a reputation that precedes you.
Hope it's good.
It's good. It's a great one. Yeah.
Okay, so I always like to get started out by setting some context around what you do. So if you could please briefly describe your company, the types of customers and clients you work with, and the services you provide.
You bet. So my brand is the Change Energizer, and my passion is to energize key leaders and team leaders to focus and take action on their goals, their priorities, their income-producing activities, and their team issues. And I do that from the stage as the keynote speaker. I have some signature keynotes that really deal with focusing and taking action and getting out of problems. And also do it through retreats where we can come in, dig a little deeper, and do a half day, a full day, or a 2-day retreat and really work on the nuts and bolts of priority management, goal setting, and team management.
All right, so how do you then, or what do you do to help people then make a material substantive change after being through one of your retreats? Because it sounds good when you're there, but then later it may be paid.
So when people come to a retreat, they're gonna spend a half day or a day with me, and we're gonna actually outline, where are you headed? What is your destination? What is it that your company needs to see happen? What goals are you trying to hit? What milestones are you trying to hit? And what's holding you back from that? And most of the time it's muddy priorities. They're either not real clear about what their goals are, or they're not really clear about what each team member should be doing to help them achieve those goals. A lot of times they don't have key performance indicators, so there's no way to measure how well they're doing. And I put all of that together to help them with their execution and their delegation and build a scale where they're headed.
All right.
So when they come out of a retreat, they've got the tools in their hands to go to work. And it's not just a bunch of fluff and enthusiasm, but they're going to have a calendar where they can create a routine and schedule their priorities. They're going to have their top 5 priorities for this week and the top 2 issues that they need to deal with. They're going to have clear goals and who's going to help them get to those goals. They're going to understand their team and dealing with underperformers and how to have a courageous conversation with an underperformer and get them back on track so that they can achieve the level they need to achieve.
Yeah.
And when they go home, they're going to have tools, not just excitement.
Good, great. So that raises a couple of things in my mind. First is that goal setting is always a challenge, that people don't go far enough when they set the goals, because you should have goals that are SMART goals, something that you can actually measure and track progress towards, rather than just go off and do good things. So how do you approach that?
That's a great question. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that phrase, that term, SMART goals. Actually, we start off with 9 categories of goals. And those 9 categories include things like professional, personal, recreational, mental, your health. And what I find is when I break it into those 9 categories, it gets their mental juices flowing and they can begin to think of it. The brain thinks in categories. And when I can break your goals up categorically, some may have to do with, okay, so what are your sales goals? What's your revenue goals? What's your new hire goals? What's your production goals? And as we break those down into categories specific to their needs or their industries, well, they're just able to respond so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And then we create a timeline. So 5-year goals, 3-year goals, 1-year plan, and then break it into quarters and create an action plan to help you achieve those goals and where you want to go.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how that can make it stick. You get somebody to make that much of an effort, and then you energize them to continue with it, and they can see progress towards what they're trying to achieve.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. The other part you brought up that was interesting is dealing with somebody who's underperforming, and that's a challenge. But really, you got part of it is trying to figure out what is motivating that person. Why aren't they performing? And you don't fire them, but you try to figure out what it is that they're trying to get into.
So it's important to have what I call a courageous conversation. So number one, you can't tell if somebody's underperforming if you don't have any KPIs in place.
That's true. Yeah.
So if they don't have a good job description, they don't have good KPIs, that's the boss's problem. That's not their problem. People can't operate in the dark. So just setting off first, make sure that they have key performance indicators and clear goals and expectations. So I have people that, right now, because I'm a leader of an organization and I help people in other areas. And so, the first question that you just ask is, hey, how are things coming along with your project?
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to say, who knows? Oh, things are great. Okay, well, show me what you've got. And then they have to bring it up and they have to show you exactly what's going on and where the problem is and where they're underperforming. And then the next question is, okay, so who are you helping? Who are you getting to help with that? So that sends 2 messages. One, I don't want you to try to do this by yourself. If you need help, ask for help. And I guess that is really the other part is ask for help. It's amazing. I've got a lot of, my kids are, my daughter's been at her company for about a year. She's an engineer. And if she has a problem with something, it takes a lot of guts to walk into the boss and say, hey, you hired me as an engineer. I've spent 5 years in college to get my degree. I'm a moron and I can't figure it out. Would you help me? It takes a lot of courage to do that. Yeah. And so sometimes a boss has to have the courageous conversation and say, how are you doing? Where are you stuck? Show me. So who are you getting to help you? And that means the boss is offering help. Mm-hmm. And then things like, are you open to suggestions? And who can say no to that? Mm-hmm. And then that gives you an opportunity to help them out. And then the last of the 5 questions is, so when do you see yourself getting back on track? So it's designed to create an atmosphere and a questioning so that people don't feel threatened or beat up. Because most of the time, if somebody is underperforming, it's because they don't know what to do or they've lost their motivation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're right. Let's not fire them. Let's see if we can get them back on track. Let's see if we can manage them and help them to grow and do better. Now, eventually, if they continue to be underperformers, that's just telling me they're the wrong person for the job. Mm-hmm. It's not their ability, their gift, their timing. And so I can move them out, either out of the company entirely or to another area where they're more skilled or suited.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's really good. So I always like to ask my clients or the guests about the word quality. Quality is a really broad term and means 1,000 different things to 1,000 different people. So how do you define quality?
Quality?
Yes.
That's a great question. I think that's part of a company's responsibility to define what quality looks like to them. So core values, how is your bar of excellence? Because for some, that's good enough. And for others, that's not good enough. We believe in exceptional quality. And I think it's up to the company to give definition for what they're expecting when they use that term quality.
Yes. Yeah, definitions are really important, especially when you say exceptional quality. Again, that makes that qualifier doesn't help because it depends upon who's thinking about it. So you really have to define it, probably quantify it so people know exactly what you mean.
Well, yeah, you take a mechanic, for instance, who runs a shop, and he says that we provide quality workmanship. Well, we like that. But when you go in and see what he orders, what that mechanic may be ordering is refurbished parts.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody would say, that's not quality. He may be ordering second market parts. That's not the quality we're looking for. Or he may be ordering from the factory, from that style of car, parts there that are genuine replacements. And so that may be their definition of quality.
Right.
So you just have to ask because, oh my word, people have a different version of what quality looks like.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So when you are giving your speeches and talking with people and trying to motivate them, what are one or two of the biggest misconceptions out there that you encounter as you try to energize people?
Well, one of them is that people are hoping that just our words can do something in their head and get them feeling good. And I do believe in motivation because I'm a motivational speaker, but it's action that really releases the miracle. I'm a huge believer in physics, and there's a terminology about energy. Energy is in two forms at all the time. One is potential energy, and the other is kinetic energy.
Mm-hmm.
And potential energy is just energy at rest. It's just sitting there. It may be bustling with opportunity, but it's just sitting there. It could be a little bit of energy. It could be a lot of energy. It could be massive energy. But until it has velocity, the formula for kinetic energy is mass times velocity squared equals kinetic energy. And the minute it begins to move and take action, when it takes action, then things begin to happen. And the misconception sometimes is that people can just get excited and feel good, but if they don't go home and take action, then all that other stuff is just going.
Yeah. No, that's so true. So, so what are some of the common fears that people have about trying to take action?
Oh, that's a good one. One is a sense, and remember I use the word sense, a sense of incompetence. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do that. I'm nervous about that. I'm afraid to do something. And fear, unfortunately, keeps a lot of people shut down. They're afraid to take that first step, afraid to step out there. And that's a big deal. As a matter of fact, when the pandemic hit, I love to get on the stage and in front of crowds and groups. I've done that my whole life. And I get energy from them as we respond and we connect and interact. But when the pandemic hit, and suddenly I have to do in front of a camera with no audience that I can see, oh my word, that's a different story.
Yeah.
So I have the choice of either just being afraid and backing off in a corner and saying, no, I just can't do that. But instead, I went and found some training on how to speak in front of a camera, how to do virtual meetings, how to use Zoom and WebEx and GoToMeeting. And as a result of that, my confidence is gone up. So I'm confident to get in front of a camera, put on these earbuds, know what my background looks like, know what I look like, and speak to that camera with the same enthusiasm and authority that I had when I was in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
And people respond to it.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's got to be difficult because there is some interaction when you get live people sitting in front of you. You can see whether they're interested or not. When you say something that resonates with them, they get energized. But when you just got a bunch of little talking heads on a screen, you don't have that same type of environment.
That's right. That's right. So sometimes there are things you can do to fix that. There have been some people who use Zoom webinar
Mm-hmm.
to try to do a keynote, and I really discourage that because you can do the same thing in a Zoom meeting and you can see at least 25 of the faces on the screen while you're presenting.
Yeah.
So there could be some real advantages to that, depending on the size of the crowd.
Right. Yeah, if you get too many people on there, then you get those bandwidth problems then too. So,
Yeah.
okay, so how have you helped people get past the fears? I mean, you got past your fear, but if you other people would say, well, they're outside their comfort zone. How do you get them over that hump?
I get them to take action. First, it's baby steps. So just almost any action is better than no action. The minute you face your fear and you just take an action, you get up and do something. So let's say that it's goal setting. One of the big deals that people just cringe with, not necessarily goal setting, but building a routine, is I tell people you should schedule your priorities. You know, all great leaders have a routine that they go by and they schedule their priorities. Some people freeze up at that. And I'll say, okay, here's the deal. Just schedule 2 or 3 things this week. Actually, 5. What are your top 5 priorities this week that you've determined you need to get this done? Okay, look at your calendar and figure out a morning or an afternoon that you can fit in those 5 things. And so by then, just say, well, I'll try to work on this on Monday and this Tuesday, and I got to do something on Wednesday, but I'll do another one on Tuesday. And when they take those baby steps, and then I help them stay with it, before very long, it's like, I can do this. Hey, this worked for me. I feel good because I'm ahead of schedule. I got my stuff done. Man, that's never happened. So that's how we do it. We take baby steps.
Yeah. Well, one technique that I use, that haven't used it enough, but I'm using it now, is what's called a Kanban board, where you just have a big sheet with a bunch of sticky notes on it, things to do and things you've done. And as soon as you're done, you can just throw it out, and you feel feel a sense of accomplishment because you're removing the
Yeah. Yeah, I like stuff like that. I think personally, checklists are one of the best things that you can have. Number one, you don't have to remember them. They're on a piece of paper. And you check them off and say, I accomplished this.
Okay, so can you share a story where you've helped somebody specifically get over the fears and become productive?
You bet. Right now, I'm coaching a commercial realtor here in the Austin area. And 2 years ago, when he called, he said, I need your help. And I was actually at a conference, and we had a call scheduled. And so I stepped out of the conference and got on the phone with him. And he said, I got to have some help, man. I'm the only person in the office, and I've got an admin, and I've just got so much stuff. I am not getting done. I am busy all the time. And I've got this pet project that I just really want to work on, and I can't find the time to do it. I'm frustrated. And so he took me on, and I set him up on a routine, help him to start figuring out what his priorities really were. Because until you write them down, it's just a mesh up there. But the minute you write them down, they become clear. And so we begin to set up primary, secondary, and admin priorities. And as he began to categorize those, suddenly he began to have a routine. And then I said, you've got this project. Oh man, I want to work on that. Okay, is that a priority? Yeah, it's a priority. Then schedule it. Put it on your schedule. When do you want to work on it? Ooh, I should just put it on my schedule. And I said, yeah. And he said, okay, I'm going to work on it Thursday mornings. I said, great. Just schedule it. And when somebody calls and says, hey, can we meet here? Can we do this? You look at your calendar and say, I've got an appointment. We'll have to move it to another time. And as a result of it, he started focusing on that pet project, and he was able to get it completed.
Yeah.
Now, I call that a success.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I'm still coaching.
Yeah. Okay. So if you could distill that down into like a real short, like 25 words or less, what would be the moral of the story?
To get things done, schedule your priorities and then work your schedule.
Yeah. Schedule the work and work the schedule. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
right.
All right. So now, can you've led a very interesting life. So could you kind of give our listeners a kind of a brief synopsis of your history from when you went to college to where you are now? What defining moment led you to become this change energizer?
Yeah, so my background is theology, and I had a passion to, work in the church. And so after I got out of high school, went to college, and after college, I evangelized as a church planner and a church growth consultant all over the country. Then I settled up in West Texas, and I built a great church, quintupled the size of our congregation, built a 13,000 square foot worship facility. But towards the end of that, my marriage hit a train wreck. And when it had that train wreck, I had to make some big decisions. And one of those was pivoting into the business community. Wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I just knew that I was a people builder, and that that'd been my whole career, is building people and building organizations. And so I did. I pivoted into the business world and started coaching and consulting. And quite frankly, it just took off. And that for about 17, 18 years now. And in the last 5 years, I have really pivoted back towards keynote speaking and getting on the stage. And I'm so excited about that because it's taken off as well. So that was a big defining moment. Wasn't a particularly good defining moment, but it was one that I used to do good. And it's helped me to be where I am today.
Okay, thank you, Scott. So, in the similar vein, Scott, could you kind of share an experience you had maybe growing up or as a child that still influences how you approach business today?
Well, that's a really good one. I'm not sure that I can tell you exactly how it happened. My dad was an engineer, and I have a mind that just thinks in nuts and bolts. And so I just have, I guess, a tendency to be able to take complicated hairball things and straighten them out. And so I've just done that forever. I like to build things. When I was in junior high and high school, I built furniture, won blue ribbons with it. Everybody else played football and baseball and basketball. I was in shop. But in shop, I won blue ribbons left and right for the furniture that I built. So that gave me the sense of creating tangible things. Mm-hmm. And I guess I do that now in organizations and in people the same way. I try to build structures and tangible things that last for a long time.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, Scott, now a little bit different, shifting gears. What does success look like for Scott Carley?
Well, success looks like, for me, the amount of speaking, the keynotes and retreats that I can do in a year's time. And part of what I'm doing right now is in building my speaking business is to be able to speak from the stage and help people work through their hairballs and take action on their goals and priorities. When I can see that happening, then I feel successful. Mm-hmm. And when organizations and companies have confidence in me to hire me to come and speak to their employees and speak to their leaders and get them out of a funk and out of a stall and back in the game, I've been a success.
Okay. So have you done any TED Talks, or is that something that's
not yet?
So how do you have, it's a kind of an interesting way of presenting. So how would it be any different for you to do a TED Talk than what you normally do with your speaking engagements?
No, a TED Talk would be something that I would welcome. The National Speakers Association, we have a program once or twice a year where we bring some of our speakers up during the meeting, and they have 5 minutes to give a presentation about what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really similar to a TED Talk.
Mm-hmm.
I've done several of those. And for me to put something together in a 5-minute time limit is not a problem at all.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I have one on my website about conquer your sand traps. It's what made Tiger Woods a champion.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about how that golf and sand traps are very similar to the business world, and that most of the world practices their clubs and their drivers and their irons and their putter, but almost nobody practices the pitching wedge.
Mm-hmm.
But that's 11% of the game. Your sand traps are what going to keep you from being phenomenal. And if you don't learn how to master them like Tiger did, you're never going to be a green jacket wearer.
Okay, so here's another question. I just, from a personal curiosity perspective, I don't know how I could actually talk long enough without notes. If you just kind of memorize the whole thing and then let it flow naturally. So how do you overcome that?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So just remember, I've been preaching for 30 years.
Yeah.
And one of the tools that I've learned to use are outlines and stories. And quite frankly, any great speaker only covers 3 points and has maybe 3 stories or so to embellish those points. And great speakers don't try to cover 10 points or 17 points. 3 major points, an introduction, 3 major points, a wrap up, and then the stories that are woven through there that bring those 3 points alive.
Yeah.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, and I guess the story is that you can easily remember the story and tell the story, and then you can just tie it back to those points.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now with COVID-19, how has that affected your business and your speaking engagements?
COVID-19 has been an accelerator. And COVID-19, when things like that happen to a business, to people like us who are speakers or meeting planners, COVID-19 will either accelerate your innovation and your ability to stay in business and pivot and be flexible, or it will accelerate your demise. And COVID-19 accelerated our innovation. And we realized very quickly that we just have to pivot and do something different. As a matter of fact, right before this call, I shot a video about these 2 certifications that I got. Because as president of the Austin chapter of the National Speakers Association, we couldn't have a meeting in April, or I guess it was, in April. And what are we going to do? And so we pivoted and we went virtual. And we practice it. We got some virtual training. Our speakers have had to get some virtual training. And some in businesses and speakers and everybody, some people are pivoting and being innovative, and others are burying their head in the sand.
Yeah.
Here's one illustration. I like to use this one. And when this holding our breath, going to hold our breath. This will be over a little while. Yeah. And then in April, we were still holding our breath. That, okay, well, in a little bit, it's going to break open. Now it's May.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have figured out that we need to quit holding our breath and go buy some scuba equipment because we're going to have to learn to swim through this. And meeting planners and speakers have quit holding their breath, and they bought the scuba equipment.
Yeah, because I know there's, conventions and conferences and symposia have really been hit hard on that because they've been canceled right and left because people can't travel to that. So to be able to still, impart that knowledge, it's important. And it is therapeutic for people to be able to participate in something like that.
Yes, it is. Yeah, yesterday I did 2 virtual keynotes to 2 separate associations from my home studio. Tomorrow, I'm doing a 3-hour retreat to a group in New Mexico. Friday, I'm doing a 3-hour retreat to a group in Toledo, Ohio. All of it over this same camera.
Mhm. That's cool. Okay, so now, since you're saying that you've taken action and trying to go virtual, have you seen any hiccups in the technology that's preventing you to have a smooth delivery?
Oh, sure. There's limits and exceptions. Right after COVID was just coming on board, I guess the first thing that I did was get a hardwire to my computer so that my internet wasn't on Wi-Fi, it was hardwired. That was a big help because on Wi-Fi, my wife is because she's having to work from home.
Hmm.
She's in an office over here working from home in our house. So she's on the internet.
Yeah.
I'm on the
Hmm.
internet. She's on the Wi-Fi, but I'm on hardwire. That was one. And then the other one was these earbuds. And I got these earbuds because they fit into my ear very well. And they're both a microphone and as well as a listening device. So my hands are free. I don't have a wire hanging around my
Yeah.
neck. I can stand, I can move around. That was a big help.
Mm.
And then making sure that I had all the other equipment. Part of the certification that I went through with e-speakers was the technical end of all this.
Mm.
How to do a WebEx or a Zoom or a GoToMeeting or whatever it was. And one of the tests that they give you is that, let's say it shuts down and goes
Yeah.
out. And I had to shut it down and come back up within 60 seconds. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the other certification that I got helped me to understand, like, what's in my background? What am I wearing? How do I present myself? Am I looking at the camera or am I
Mm.
looking somewhere else? Uh, what are we doing? How to handle comments that come in through chat or a
Yeah.
breakout session. So we've just had to really uh, been on a big learning curve
Yeah,
to
I
become
know.
proficient.
I know even with me with doing these podcasts is that I like to look at your face, but then I'm not looking at the camera. So it's hard to look at the camera and talk without looking at somebody's face.
That's right. But you train on it after a while. I mean, I'm on Zoom a lot every day because it's how I'm communicating. And so I'm getting better and better at it.
Okay, so yeah, part of what happened here with the COVID-19 is nobody was prepared to figure out what their essential services were that could not be interrupted at all. And you know, everybody's been stuck on that, and that's a very important thing. A lot of times, businesses will have like a business continuity plan, but they've never used it or checked it out, and that still doesn't help what's going on.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. We have to figure out where we're most needed and figure out how we can help people the best we can. I actually believe that, well, let me give you, for instance, I've had 3 organizations who called and said, "Hey, Scott, our meetings, we can't gather anymore. And so we need to cancel." And my comment back to them was, "Okay, we'll do whatever you want to. But FYI, I'm a Zoom expert. I know how to do this. And if there was ever a time when your people needed to hear from you, it's right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're isolated. They're away from their peers. They're frustrated. They don't really know what they're supposed to be doing or how long this is going to last. And if they ever needed encouragement and ever needed help and direction, it's now. So if you're up to it, I'm a Zoom presenter and I can walk you through it. And 2 of those people have used my Zoom account to bring my presentations to their groups. And we had one had 70 people on it.
Oh boy, yeah.
So yeah, so this is still a time when people need to hear. As a matter of fact, the keynote that I did yesterday, they haven't had a meeting since February. I was the
Wow.
first meeting they've had since February. Now, how lost and frustrated do you think those people are?
Yeah. Right. And that's one of these things, some people are saying now, there's a lot more communication than we had in the past because everybody's isolated and you're being forced to come together over these, go to meeting or WebEx or Zoom. And there's more interaction than they've had in the past too.
It's been my experience. I'm having much better conversations. People are more responsive to my meeting requests. And, let's say like a happy hour. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I do 3 happy hours a week. I don't do them. I attend 3 happy hours a week um, over Zoom. But I can look and see everybody's name on the board. I
Mm-hmm.
can private message them. I can say, hey, let's have a Zoom coffee break here tomorrow or in a few days.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just getting all kinds of really good things. And then from LinkedIn, people are responding to that and having Zoom meetings. So quite frankly, I'm having better and more conversations in the last 5 months than I had in the last 10 months last
Mm-hmm.
year.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've noticed, because I've done a lot of work in Asia over the past 10, 15 years, is that in Asia, the business culture is such that at the end of the day, everybody goes out and socializes, the bosses and people, and you don't talk about work at all. So you talk
Yeah.
about family and hobbies and sports, and that's doesn't happen here at all. At the end of the day, people scatter and go. There's 9 different ways, and it'd be wonderful if we had that type of culture here, where people would continue to socialize and you get to know your peers and you better that way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people want to see you in a personal mode, not always a professional mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now, I guess the question that comes up is, people are now recognizing businesses has to change. The interactions with people are going to be different. Probably working from home is going to be probably more the norm now. But I'm wondering, what are they trying to do to make these lessons stick? I mean, Nick, you could say, here's what I've learned. People say, I've learned so much about COVID-19. And then, okay, what have you learned? I can't tell you. They just throw that out. But, you wait 6 months, the crisis is over, people are back to work. Is anything going to change?
Yeah, so here's what I see. Uh, we did a poll in our NSA group because for the month of June we had the opportunity to come back live, meet face to face, and I asked them if you could come back and meet face to face, would you do it? 60% said no.
Mm.
40% said we would show up if there was social distancing and everybody had masks on and there were hand sanitizer. And the overwhelming message was we're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And this fear isn't going away for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who have compromised health issues,
Mm-hmm.
and until there is a vaccine and they've had it, they're going to be very apprehensive.
Yeah.
And some habits that we've had as just a people of the world, hey, you want one of my potato chips? Yeah, man, I'll take a potato chip. Want a sip of my Coke? Yeah, I'll take a sip of your Coke. That stuff is fear, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
lingers with people for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that's not going to slip away very easily.
No. So, from a business perspective, what are your top 3 concerns or challenges that keep you awake at night?
Well, right now, it was waiting for the meeting planners to really come to terms with the fact that virtual is here and it's not going away.
Mm-hmm.
And so start booking some virtual meetings. And I'm seeing that. I've been on the phone with several, and they have come to terms, and their companies and clients have come to terms with, we're going to have to do some virtual stuff because, one of the event planners talked today and said, Scott, there's some that are going to gather in groups and, it may not be a big group and they be separate, but one of the presentations, we want to put you on stage in a hologram. Not actually there, but in a hologram. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen one of those, but I'm telling you that is a bait. People will come to see that.
Yeah.
Other people will be able to watch it. So one of the things that's kept me awake at night, that's one, is for the event planners to just finally come to terms with the fact that we're going to have to do this virtually.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing that keeps me awake at night is, am I proficient virtually and on Zoom? Can I, as a Change Energizer, can my audiences still connect with me
Yeah.
and be energized and feel what they felt when they saw me on stage? And I've already had confirmation that my energy is going through the camera and it's still working. So that's a big one. And I'm not really, I don't know that I have a third one. I've been through a lot.
Yeah.
And if you hang in there, there's a poem that I live by. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging is all uphill, when the debts are high and the funds are low, and you want to sigh, but you have to go, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, quit. I live by that. There's more to it, but I live by that. And so I guess I can sleep a little better at night.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So from a different perspective now, if you had to start your career over from scratch today, what would you do differently and what would you do the same?
I think the one thing that I would do differently is I would more quickly get into the target market that can afford speakers. And I wouldn't, I would go there quicker. Because there's a lot of people, NSA is a National Association of Speakers, professional speakers. And the difference between professionals and public speakers is that professional speakers get paid and public speakers don't. And there's a lot of people who are great public speakers, but they don't have any intention of getting paid. They already have a job, their company pays for them. There's a lot of conferences where they just bring in people from their companies and they let them speak. And that's really great. A lot of great information out there, but that's not who I am. Speaking is how I make my living. And so I'd be quicker to make it into the arenas where professional speakers are being hired.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Scott. This is fascinating. We're rapidly running out of time. We can just keep going on and on and on, but I want to respect your evening here. So get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you and what you do.
Well, thank you. Anybody can go to the changeanizer.com or scottcarley.com, and I'm there. You'll find me on the web, and there's contact information there. My email address is scott@scottcarley.com, and if you email me, I'll respond to you. We'll try to set up a Zoom meeting and have a conversation.
Wonderful. Okay, Scott, thank you so much. You're fantastic. I just can feel your energy, and I really think listeners will enjoy this as much as I have. So thank you so much for your time tonight.
Hey, Henry, thank you so much for inviting me as your guest. And I really like what you're doing. I like the style of your podcast. So keep up the good work.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Business Performance Podcast with your business coach, Henry Schneider. For more episodes and business strategies, please visit welcome.ppqc.net/blog. That's www.welcome.ppqc.net/blog. And remember to subscribe so you can get the latest episodes. Thank you.